What's going on, everyone? Mitesh with MTech, and today we are talking about the OnePlus 6T. I've had mine for about a week now, and I'll give you guys some of my first impressions of it. Now, before we get started with that, though, I want to talk a little bit about what makes this version, the T-Mobile version, different from the one that you would buy from the OnePlus's website, the unlocked one. So the main thing that it comes down to is, with the T-Mobile version, you lose access to that secondary SIM slot. So in this phone, the SIM slot only comes with a single SIM holder versus the dual that you get with the regular one, and in the software there is no mention of a secondary SIM slot at all. Now I have a feeling that the secondary SIM slot still exists inside of this thing, like physically it's still there, but they just don't let you access it via software, so basically it's like it's not there. Maybe if you could root this and put the original thing on there, with the original software from the regular OnePlus on here, you can get it, but until then, you are stuck with this phone only having a single SIM slot. Not a huge deal to me, but some of you might care about that, so that is there. The only other thing that you should know is the fact that you don't get an option when you buy from T-Mobile. You can only get the mid-tier model, which is the 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, so you can't get the 256GB of storage, and you can't get that base model of just 6GB of RAM. Additionally, you can only get it in mirror black, which kind of sucks, because this mirror black is just... Seriously, I cleaned this before I started recording. It's already got a bunch of smudges on here. God. Anyways, so you can only get it in this color, you can't get that midnight black, and you can't get that awesome new thunder purple that's out there. So just know that these are the differences between the T-Mobile version and the unlocked OnePlus version. Alright, so finally, let's start talking about some of my impressions of this thing, and the first thing we gotta talk about is, of course, that screen on here. So the screen on here is a 6.4-inch AMOLED display. It's a 1080p resolution, and you know, the 6.4 inches on here really kind of scared me when I heard about it, because I just came from the iPhone XR, which has a 6.1-inch display, and honestly, I found that thing to be like about as big as a phone as I would want. So when I heard that this thing had a 6.4-inch display, I was just a little bit wary about it, but I'm happy to say that this thing feels even better in the hand than the iPhone XR did, because it's got smaller side bezels, so this thing fits much better in my hand than the iPhone XR did, even though it's got the same aspect ratio for the display. So even though this one is much taller, it feels thinner even though it has a larger display, which, you know, that's what you get when you reduce those side bezels as much as OnePlus has done. Now, it is a very tall display, so reaching to the top of the screen is pretty difficult. Luckily, on the stock launcher, you can just swipe down anywhere to get your notifications, so it's not that big of a deal. It's still, like, these phones are getting really tall, and handling them just one-handed is kind of tough. Now, of course, while we're talking about the screen, we also have to talk about that notch up there. This thing is probably one of the smallest notches that I've ever seen on a phone, next to the Essential phone, which had a slightly taller notch, but it wasn't quite as wide, because this one has this like sloping sides, which are okay. I don't quite love it. If they could have just made it a cutout, it would have been, I think, a little bit better. But you know what? Overall, you just won't notice the notch at all. And of course, the software allows you to turn it off if you're someone who really hates a notch. You can turn it off in software and never have to see it. So overall, I think that this is a really good display on this device. I love those inky blacks that you can get on AMOLED display like this. And yeah, it's great for reading. It's great for watching videos and things like that. The only thing that hampers the experience on watching videos is the fact that it's only got a single bottom firing speaker. I really wish OnePlus could have found it in their budget to put a secondary speaker at the top, or, you know, just somehow put a secondary speaker where it's not as easy to cover up like this one is, and, you know, just to get a louder sound, because the one on here, it gets decently loud, but it doesn't sound great, and then, like I said, it's really easy to cover, so it's not a great experience in terms of media. Maybe the OnePlus 7, they'll finally have double speakers on here, but until then, you're just stuck with a bad experience when it comes to audio. And I'm almost done talking about the display here, but of course, I cannot move on before I talk about the in-display fingerprint reader that we have on here. It is the first time I've ever used an in-display fingerprint reader, and honestly, I was gonna say that it's very slow. Not very slow, it's slow. It's slower than I would want it to be, even though OnePlus bragged quite a bit on stage about how this is the fastest in-display fingerprint reader. When I initially got the phone, it was not that fast. But I got an update very recently, like just 3 or 4 days ago, which has made this fingerprint reader significantly faster. Before, it used to take a couple tries for my fingerprint to get me so locked in. Like, it would try to read it a couple times before it actually let me in. Nowadays, it literally is just one tap and I'm in. So the fingerprint reader, the in-display fingerprint reader, it really does work. and it now is fast enough for me to just use it all the time. Like, I still would wait for it. I don't like putting in my PIN, so I would still wait for it anyways. But yeah, I trust it enough that I would definitely not use that face unlock feature that they have. Instead, I would rely on that in-display fingerprint reader enough now. Now, the only dislike that I have about the in-display fingerprint reader, and it's a very, very minor one, is the fact that it does have to shine the entire screen very brightly at you. So at night, it's super annoying how bright it can get. Like, if you're in bed at night and you want to lock your phone, I say put in your PIN number instead, because just this screen gets super, super bright. Alright, so finally, let's move on from the screen to something else, like the cameras on here. So the cameras on here were definitely something that I was kind of wary of, coming from something like a Pixel, which takes amazing photos, to the OnePlus phone, which, you know, is not known for their cameras really. I have to say that I'm not as disappointed as I thought I was going to be. I don't love OnePlus's colors on this phone. So the colors that I get out of a picture never look quite right. But the sharpness, the detail is really there. Especially in good lighting, this thing can take really good pictures. In low light, it does tend to struggle, even with that new nightscape mode, which I've tried out against like Pixel's night sight, and it's no comparison whatsoever. Honestly, the nightscape mode, I wouldn't have even recommended anybody use before because it took so long to process. But with that new update, the processing has gotten much, much faster. So I'm finally starting to use it a little bit more, and I still find it to be lacking when compared to something like night sight from the Pixel phone. So I'm going to be doing a separate video on that. If you guys are interested, definitely leave a like down below so I can know to do that one. But yeah, the camera on here, it's good. Not as good as I would like, but really this is not a final opinion because I still have a lot more testing to do with the camera. I really haven't taken as much video with it and really not taken as many photos with it as I would like. So just overall first impressions, the camera is better than I thought it was going to be. It's still not as good as I would like. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my first impressions of this device. I think it is a fantastic phone. The only other thing I want to talk about is the software on here. The software on here is really good. Oxygen OS is, you know, really good. It's like stock Android with a couple of additional extra features that are actually kind of nice to have, like a dark mode. Who knew, Google? People want to have a dark mode. I personally love it. Just being able to get everything to be just that pitch black. Fantastic. Just small things like that, you know, are just super useful when you're using the phone day to day. So I think OnePlus has done a fantastic job in their software, keeping it close to stock as possible. So even upgrades are, you know, relatively fast. And performance on this thing is, of course, blazing fast. People say that it's faster than the Pixel phones, but honestly, I've come from the Pixel phone and I don't know that it's that much faster. I honestly can't tell that it's faster at all. Maybe it's just that animations are sped up a little bit, but other than that, I don't feel like I notice it being like significantly faster. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I just need more time with it, and maybe I'll be able to see it once I do it like a side-by-side comparison. But overall, I love the software on here. It's fantastic. The extra RAM makes it so that you never get any apps out of memory, which is fantastic. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my first impressions of this device. The one thing that I didn't talk about is battery life, and that's because 1 week isn't really enough time to really get a feel for the battery life. I haven't really tested it as thoroughly as I would like, so definitely look forward to that in like the full review. And let me know in the comments down below if there's anything that you want me to cover about this phone in my full review. But with that, that's pretty much all I have for you guys in this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!